Yeah, welcome back. We're going to start, we're kind of at the end of the section about the introductory sessions. And by the way, you know, these adherence criteria are all part of the manual. So you can download the manual for free from the MAPS website, so it might save you taking notes. And you're welcome to take notes if you want. But and just a word about the video. We're going to show you a few different video clips this afternoon that are of Nick, one of the veterans in the vet study, who has graciously given us permission to use video for this. If some of you have read Acid Test, Nick is the Marine veteran that is in Acid Test. So a lot of respect for him and all the other participants, and for his allowing us to watch these. You know, we're not showing really particularly intense traumatic stuff on these clips that we've chosen, but just to let you know, some of them are going to be about PTSD and painful topics, so just take care of yourself and be aware of that.
How about, were there any questions that came up about the introductory sessions? Yeah. So, okay, there's one over here, and then we'll pass it over to you.
Is it on?
Mm-hmm.
Hello. It had to do with gender and how many therapists are in the room. And do you ever have an experience where someone's, maybe the transference is such that they freak out about a man being there or a woman being there, and that one of you has to leave? Do you always have two genders in the room?
We always have two therapists working with people. Almost all the time they're both in the room, but you know, one therapist may get up to go to the bathroom or go get lunch out of the kitchen, get a cup of tea, but we do let people know that
And they're male and female.
it's
Michael
always
didn't
male
say
and female.
Male and female.
Co-therapists. So I think that helps with safety. But we say to people, you know, if you want to talk to just one of us, for one thing, you know, the way we have the futon set up, people can turn toward just one of us. We let them know, you know, we won't be offended if you're ignoring one of us. That's totally fine. And we have had a few occasions when somebody's asked for one of us to leave for a little while so they could just talk to a man or a woman, and we're fine with that. So it does allow for that possibility, but that's happened rarely. But it's not uncommon for people to spend time talking to much more to one of us for a while, and you know, that's a big advantage of having male and female. People can have transference and relationship with one or the other of us. I guess maybe I'll tell you one I think beautiful example of that was a woman who had been very abused and neglected as a child, and always went to school unkempt because her parents, you know, didn't keep her clean or brush her hair. And during one of the sessions, she just turned toward Annie, and she spent about 45 minutes just talking to Annie, completely ignoring me. And after that, she said to Annie, "Would you brush my hair?" She had very long hair, and Annie said, "Sure." And so with her permission, Annie got up on the futon with her and spent a long time just brushing her beautiful long hair. It was just such a lovely sight. I was in tears over there being ignored, and not because I was being, actually because I was being ignored, because it was so beautiful that I was crying. And then, you know, after that, she lay back down, and a few minutes later, then she rolled over to face me, and she said, "Okay, I'm ready to talk to you now." And she said, "Have you noticed that every time I talk to you, I'm trying to impress you with how smart I am? That's what I did with my father. He was a smart guy, and he was hardly ever there. but now I'm ready to have a real conversation with you. And then we had a real conversation. So it's just a beautiful example of, you know, transference that we didn't have to set up or interpret or do anything but just be present and be open. So that kind of thing happens quite a lot.
I think there was a question right here in the middle. Yeah.
So how long does this protocol take? And like how much time is between the different medicine intakes?
How much time does the whole protocol take?
Yeah, with the like it said 9 to 11 therapy sessions, is that correct?
Yeah, basically there are 3 preparatory sessions, 3 MDMA sessions a month apart, 3 or 4 integration sessions after each MDMA session, and then follow up. Basically the therapy's over about a month after the 3rd MDMA session, then there are some follow-up evaluation sessions.
And
So
the
if people
first-
got randomized to full dose, it would take approximately 6 months. And then if they got randomized to one of the lower doses, then it would be a whole nother round of it. So it would be another 5 months.
Thank you.
So,
I think there was
thanks.
one more
Oh,
question
okay.
right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for all the incredible work that you're doing and laying the groundwork, you know, and paving the road. But I just really wonder, dealing with so much toxic material, you know, how that is for you, or how is it just uplifting because people come through it, or how do you protect yourselves?
Thanks for asking that. We're actually going to talk about self-care at the end, so if you don't mind holding that. But in a nutshell, it is very uplifting, and we need to do things to keep our own work going and processing what we're sitting with, too.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I think this person had a, yeah.
Hi. So you mentioned that you explained that all of the touch from the therapists, if they're open to it, will be non-sexual, of course. Do you make any agreements with the patients about what they will do if some kind of sexual energy or thoughts comes up for them in their process?
We do talk about, I mean, that is part of the energy description, that those energies can be there, and we don't talk about it specifically. Yeah,
Well, we say that, like anything else, if those feelings come up,
we'll work with it.
we want you to be able to openly talk about it and work with it, but not in a physical way. Yeah.
I have a question regarding connection and trust with the practitioners. It's well reported, at least in the recreational setting, that people on psychedelics may struggle to communicate or connect well with other people that are not on psychedelics, or they are completely sober in a completely different cognitive landscape. So in that regard, in traditional setups, shamans sometimes would themselves take ayahuasca or peyote while engaging with the people they are treating. So I was wondering whether you ever pondered about the possibility of the practitioners themselves being on MDMA while delivering the therapy, and whether that would actually may have an effect on CAP scores themselves if also the practitioners are on 75, 30 or 125 milligrams of MDMA while treating themselves, and how that could be approached experimentally.
It's an,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I'm familiar with some of those shamanic traditions, and I get that is a great tradition. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's kind of a moot point for us because it's not something the FDA is ready for. So, and also I don't think I never have felt that that was a block or preventing us from being present with people or from them feeling supported. But
I mean, until it's approached experimental, we don't know.
And you know, if you think about the people that we have been, the participants that we've been treating, I mean, they are worried about loss of control. So I would imagine that it would make it a little more difficult if they knew we were taking it too.
Yeah, some people probably would find it reassuring, but I think most of the people we've worked with would probably find it disconcerting that nobody was minding the store.
Oh, well.
I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, we just started that study, and we've had 3 couples, and one of the participants, one of the couple, has to have PTSD, and they can work with their partner or a significant other that they have a pretty strong relationship with, because we're working on how PTSD affects their relationship. And they both get MDMA at the same time, and in this study, 2 women have worked together. Michael has worked with one of the other women, and I've worked with one of the other women. We've split up because they come from the CBT background, and we're bringing the MDMA manual to the therapy. And so in the MDMA session, we have them in recliners and have them have times where they sit up, and then also times where they lie back and have headphones and eye shades, and then sit up and talk to each other and paraphrase what they've just heard, and using some of the skills from CBT, but also having their own experiences.
And do you ever leave them alone for any time, like
Not until the evening. Yeah, that hasn't really come up. It's really been about, for the most part, it's been about the person with PTSD really sharing things that they have never shared before with their partner, and it's been just really beautiful.
It's kind of like in the MDMA sessions with the couples, it's very much like what we're doing here, except instead of alternating periods of inner focus with talking to us, it's alternating periods of inner focus with talking to each other more, and we're there to support. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of CBT in the Zoom calls, the online calls in between the sessions. So there's a lot of that skill building for them.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I have a question regarding the MDMA calm down. Do you prepare the patient for like the 72 hours after the taking the MDMA, like the serotonin levels go down? Do you prepare the patient with any kind of natural or chemical compound, or by telling him that this could happen? Do you find it significative or not that much? How do you manage this in MDMA therapy?
Well, we're going to talk a lot about integration, about the way things can come up. So if we can kind of hold that,
Okay, great.
that might be good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe if there's nothing else about preparatory sessions, let's show that video and then go on to these other questions later. Yeah.
So I know this is probably outside of the scope of your study and what you guys are doing right now. I was curious if in the leadership of MAPS and the people doing the studies, if there's any examination of gender and the dyad setup, and whether or not you guys have thought about the role that specifically like a trans therapist could have, considering historic, record of being in a healing capacity and all that sort of thing. I was just curious if you guys are talking about that for future things to investigate.
We have talked about it with some of the therapists in New York who are interested in that kind of question, and we have, talked to them some about it. So we're hoping that there'll be much more exploration in that direction as we go forward.
Yeah. I think some of the therapists in the San Francisco area are really interested in that topic, and there's a psilocybin study that's going to start too at UCSF. I think they're interested in that topic too.
Thanks.
UCSF, yeah.
University of San Francisco, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll show you a little clip just to give you a little more direct flavor of how we do the integration sessions.
Not integration,
I mean,
preparatory.
preparatory sessions. And let us know if you need more volume.
Ryan, are you going to turn the lights down?
I sometimes
Yeah.
get bored editing the video, so I have to do some fun titles. So basically, today is the first of 3 visits that we have to get to know each other better and talk more about the details of what we'll be doing in the study, and also to fill in some specifics about, like the dates of when you took different medicines and stuff like that, sort of that housekeeping stuff we need to do. And, mainly also to answer any questions you have or discuss any concerns or anything you think is important to talk about too. We already had a chance to talk at the informed consent visit, which was really helpful. But so do you have anything in particular on your mind, or any questions, or anything you'd like to start with?
Not really. I'm excited
Okay.
to do this. I really am. Although I was getting all anxious on the way over here.
Were you?
Yeah, coming over. I usually get a little bit of anxiety problems when I go to new places and stuff, but I think it's just the whole, when, I've done therapy and stuff before, and it always turns into sob sessions. So just, I guess, getting prepared for that, but
Sure.
Yeah.
but otherwise I'm good to go.
Okay.
Well-
I think it's really natural to have some anxiety about it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad you're excited about it, and I know that, it's, although we hope this will be really helpful, it can be painful, and difficult emotions can come up along the way, for sure.
Pain's not a problem. I can handle the pain. I just I really feel like this might be the thing that really does help me. I've done it twice in the past, therapy-wise, with the VA, and it just it's very unsuccessful, and so I'm figuring this should be completely different. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Well, we really want to be here to support you throughout this whole process in any way that you need us to, or any way we can be helpful. And we really appreciate your being honest about, I'm glad you're telling us that you've had some anxiety, because what really helps us the most is if you're really open with us and keep us posted about how you're doing, and let us know if you're having difficulty. And we want to be able to not only know how you're doing, make sure you're doing okay, but also be able to support you with
That's
it.
good.
Yeah.
Today it's like it's just kind of like a little embarrassing. I always try and keep my composure together, but like when I noticed that I had some tears afterwards, I was just kind of like, in a way, like trying to hide it and stuff. But
Yeah. So sitting still like that is actually a trigger for you.
well,
It brings back those thoughts of when you sat still.
whenever I've had like breakdowns, sometimes I kind of sit down and just, even when my wife's like patting my back and trying to help me, I seem to like just zone off and just stare. And I can see what's in front of me, but it's kind of like daydreaming, and so I just a lot of thoughts and stuff in my head, and I didn't even try to. I was just thinking about sitting still, being in Iraq, and then this comes in and that comes in your mind, all that stuff, and you start playing out all different kind of scenarios, remembering stuff. So
I've always feel this, like I said, that this Marine that kind of comes to the front whenever something happens, and
What, for instance?
Well, I've been in a few situations that I'm going back home and been to bars, and you know how people get when they get drunk and they say stupid stuff, and I don't like to get drunk at all. I mean, last time I was drunk, I was 18 years old. I don't like that feeling, but people get really stupid at bars and say dumb things, and there was some incident where there was some Navy guy, and he was talking to one of my other Marine friends, and they started getting into a conflict or whatever, and I can't remember what their deal was, but I was just trying to get in between them and tell my friend, his name was Attiker, just drop it and get out of the way. And I kept trying to push him away, and then the Navy guy, he said something about me, and I just remember this rage just coming up, and I just instantly wanted to turn around and just like tear him apart. But like I had to tell myself to just, get out of there. I really don't want to ever be like I was when I was over there.
Yeah. Well, was that something would that be an energy you would have to bring up as a Marine there? I mean, that's what you're saying.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I would get behind the gun and when I would shoot him, I was just full of rage.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I always felt like there's this part of me. It's like this other me that's kind of locked up in a cage, and just like I purposely, keep it locked up. And but like in those moments, sometimes like just come out, and it's like, I mean, it might technically be me, but it's kind of scary.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Marine Corps just, I feel like I might have like always had that person inside of me, but it's like whenever I went through all that training and stuff, it's like that's who they were. That's who they were, like, training.
Right.
And that other aspect of me.
Yeah.
And then I just
Take your time.
well, the reason I think I get so emotional about it is because I hate how I make my wife feel sometimes. And she says that whenever I get angry sometimes, she says that I don't even look the same. Like I completely look different, and I hate that I would make her cry and stuff. And I've never in my life laid a hand on her or something, but I've found myself slamming my fist on a table before, or slamming my fist on the bed, just and I don't like that. But I think I just hate how that aspect of me, it can tear me up all at once. I don't care. I just don't like how, being that way towards the people I care about. And I'm always afraid of exposing that kind of person, because I don't want anybody to to view me in a negative light like that. And I don't want to be seen as that person.
Yeah.
But
And what we're asking is that maybe showing some of that to us if it comes up, and so that we can work with it and help you heal around all that. And usually it comes, if those things come up, it usually comes up, the MDMA usually helps with that heal, and those things might come up in the sessions. And just so you know that we're willing to work with you, and we're not going to push you in a way that would make you do it. But I'm just saying, offering some ideas of how things might come up or how to work with things. And it sounds like you already know yourself of the things that get in the way and the things that you are sorry for that come up with your wife. So, but it all sounds like stuff that might come up in the sessions.
I've just really...
Yeah.
Well, it's really helpful for us, and not only we enjoy getting to know you, but then to know that you have some information about what's going on, because you're next support system. We want to be a support system too, but we know you're a really important part of it. So, and it can bring up a lot of questions for people's spouses. So we want to be a support for you too, if there's any time when you're wondering what's going on or that kind of thing. Okay? Mm-hmm. These, we have 3 sessions altogether. This is the second of the 3 before the first MDMA session. And the purpose is to get a chance to know each other, answer all your questions, and today any questions you might have, Beverly, and then to talk a little bit more about what to expect. But, so we start, do you have any questions for us about
No, I
anything?
heard that whole packet that you first gave him before he even had his first therapy thing, so I've read everything.
The informed consent?
Oh, good.
I
Good.
pretty much understand everything that's going to go on.
Good.
I'm really, really excited for Nick.
And one thing that we've talked to you about some already, Nick, but we really like to emphasize with people and their partners or spouses or support system that, unlike a lot of psychiatric drugs are kind of aimed at suppressing symptoms, which can be a helpful thing at times, This is actually aimed at helping to catalyze the therapy and really process the underlying cause of the symptoms. And this, specifically the trauma that leads to PTSD symptoms. So, we think that there's a lot of potential in that approach, but we also know that it's not always easy, and that sometimes symptoms can actually get more pronounced before they get better. And so, the model, it's really helpful to understand that model because, when you're using other models, if symptoms are getting worse, it means someone is getting worse, like things are headed in the wrong direction. Whereas very clearly in this case, it's not that we take it lightly if people are having more symptoms. We really want to help them with that and support them. And, on one level, we don't like that people have to go through that. But on another level, we know that can be really part of the healing process. So we also know that it doesn't mean something is going wrong necessarily or usually. We always pay close attention and find out and make sure something's not going wrong. But by and large, it turns out, that it's actually things are moving in the right direction, but in the process of that, there are periods with, not always, but sometimes symptoms are more intense. So it's really important to kind of know that going in, to decide, do I really want to do this? And because not everybody does. And B, to know that that could happen, and that, even though it might be difficult, it doesn't mean something bad is going on.
And sometimes we refer to it as bumps in the road, and to look at it as a healing process that's moving along. And on that healing process, there may be bumps in the road, and it's really good for you to be able to remind him if he seems to be over a big bump in the road. You can say, well, they said that this might happen, and remind him to use the tools that he has to get through that.
And to really let us know, part of it is we really, as we've talked about, we really want to know, be in close contact this whole time, not just during the days when you're here, but the whole time. We want to be available, and we really want you to let us know what's going on, and if you're having any difficulties or if there's something good going on you want us to know about, so we can really support you and help you make the best use of the experience. And you might be reminding him, or he might be reminding you sometimes. We've had people say things like, I felt really good, and then when I went home, I had kind of a meltdown. I cried for a few hours, and but I knew it was part of the healing process, and I had to tell my wife or husband, it's okay. Other times the wife or husband reminds them.
And the other thing that happens with this kind of therapy, it seems, is that it's not only the traumatic stuff that will be kind of revealed in the therapy or in the sessions. It might be stuff about your childhood, Nick's childhood, or it might be stuff about your relationship or school or whatever, anything can really come up. And so when it comes up, sometimes it's more exaggerated. So if you already have like an issue that you guys can get kind of tangled in a relationship, sometimes those things will come up and be more exaggerated. And the way we like to look at it is it's coming up for healing, and it's coming up for you to look at and get help with. Mm-hmm. So, people will notice that kind of stuff happens, and it's to be aware of it and say, okay, well, I might need help with this, or just like anything that might come up about the trauma, we're going to try to help you have tools to deal with the emotions and whatever else, that you need. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very non-directive approach that we take to the therapy, that we think the best, we view our role is to facilitate what your inner healing intelligence is bringing up as your healing process, catalyzed by the MDMA, helping that to happen more easily or more fully. But so all these, we trust that if other things come up, they need to come up, and we're sure that at some point we'll talk about the military experience too. But it's not like other things are irrelevant either. Mm-hmm. And it's also not we've been focusing quite a bit on what might be difficult, and that's important, but we don't want to overstate that either, because part of it might be pleasurable and happy and really mm-hmm. good, easy parts. And those are really important part of the healing too. We don't think that it's not a no pain, no gain kind of model.
Yeah.
Which may be a little different from the Marine Corps. Okay. So that gives you a little flavor of how we do it. And now I think we'll move on to the experimental sessions themselves. So instead of 22 general principles, there are only 14 for this. So I think we'll just go through this first, and then we'll give some examples and show some videos. And we'll go pretty quickly, because a lot of this, we've told them in the experimental sessions what we're going to do, and this is about doing it. So there's a lot of overlap in these things. So, we don't really want to create a safe setting, aesthetically pleasing, private. It's really important not to have interruptions and have a nice quiet place. The medical safety, we're monitoring the blood pressure, although more than we need to in these first studies. And kind of your general body language and attentiveness makes a difference, because people are going to be very, very aware and exquisitely sensitive. So, our intention is to be as fully present as we can. We don't, a lot of times they're inside with eye shades and headphones, And our practice is that we don't do anything else but be there with them. We don't check our email. We don't do anything like that. We do have Annie's phone is on vibrate because that's her emergency number, and we tell them, the only thing we would respond to would be if Annie's phone buzzes, she'll look. If it's really urgent, she'll go out and take the call. Otherwise, if you see it, we sometimes text each other. So we used to pass notes sometimes. So we figured out we could text each other, but we tell them, if you see us texting, we're texting each other, we're not texting anybody else. We're here to be present with you all day.
One of us takes notes. If the person wants to share something during their session, we will write that down, and we'll also kind of keep track of what has happened and what's been talked about in the session. In the preparatory and integration sessions, one of us tries to take notes and the other person is more attentive. I mean, we're both attentive, but just so that not both of us are taking notes during the session.
So just being calm and present as much as we can. This is where we do the sessions. You've seen that picture before. There's a bathroom right behind the blue chair, so they don't have to go out of the room. So, we really, in the beginning of the session, we re-emphasize things like this. These are actually quotes that a friend helping us pulled out of our recordings of what we say. We want to reaffirm our commitment to be present for you. We're going to make this a safe place for whatever comes. We're confident that we can support you with whatever comes up, reminding them to use their breath to stay with the experience. And we didn't talk about this before, but we talk to people about kind of two ways of using the breath. One is in the beginning when the medicine is coming on, sometimes people get anxious at that point, kind of during the transition. The autonomic arousal that feels kind of like a panic attack, or the sense of consciousness changing. So we tell people ahead of time, if that's coming, if anxiety is coming early on like that, in general, the best thing to do is use your breath, like diaphragmatic breathing, to help you calm yourself.
Or hold our hand, or
and ask for support.
Reassurance.
We reassure them at that point. And that's quite different from the way we approach anxiety later. Once the medicine has come on, then if anxiety is coming, we're actually not encouraging people to try to relax. We're encouraging people to use their breath to breathe into it, to be as fully present with the experience as they can, to experience it, express it in any way they need to. And ask us for anything you need, and reminding them that we're going to encourage them to spend some time inside and some time talking to us. And again, that's quite variable. And it also, we take into account what we've learned about the person by this time. Some people tend to talk to kind of move away from experience, and in that kind of case, we'd be more encouraging people to go back inside if they're willing to. Other people, if we know that there's somebody that tends to kind of suffer in silence and isolate, then we'd be more likely to check in with them a little more often. But we want to have some periods of each, and we, remind them that we're going to use music.
And that the music, so we've talked about the music in the preparatory sessions. We've told them that we have music that goes about 8 hours, a session that we've made, and that it'll have the beginning will be a relaxing kind of music, and then it will gradually start to be more dramatic and have some heart-opening kind of music. No English words, and male and female vocals. And then later on in the session, it becomes more expansive and relaxing again, quieter music. So that's kind of the trajectory for the session, but then if people find that the music is interfering with their session, we can always go back to more relaxing music or more expansive music. So, you know, we can alternate to match their experience, but we also tell people that the first thing to do if they find the music to be bothering them or aggravating them, to kind of check inside and see if it's actually bringing up emotions that they don't want to have or process that they don't want to have, and that's probably actually exactly right where we want to be. So it's a little bit of a dialogue. We talk to people about it being, you know, fine to talk about it, and then not get too focused on it, like focused on changing it, because some people can find that to be more of like a way to distract. The other thing that we didn't have in the preparatory sessions, we always talk about our experience doing breath work for years, that we're really comfortable with any emotion that comes up. We've worked with a lot of people with anger and rage, really strong emotions, and I think people like to know that what your experience is around that you're comfortable with strong emotions, so that they can really go into them when they're in the experimental session.
And we tell people we've experienced MDMA in therapeutic setting ourselves, which is, we're old enough, so it's easy because we've taken it back when it was legal. But I think it's good for people to know that we've had this experience too. So again, beginner's mind, being as open as possible to anything that comes, viewing anything as an experience, as something that's presenting itself, as an opportunity to heal. That's the optimum attitude to have to whatever comes up. And, you know, trying to foster trust in the wisdom of the inner healing intelligence. And
do you want to describe that?
Huh?
Do you want to describe that? Inner healing intelligence?
Yeah, did we not describe the inner healing intelligence? Okay, well, you know, as I said, we got the term from Stan Groff, and, you know, Stan says, just empirically speaking, it's as if there's this inner radar that people drop into an ordinary state, and then this inner radar scans and discovers what is the most important thing to work with next, and that's what determines what comes up. So we kind of take that's how we view whatever's coming up, that it's coming up for a reason, even if it seems to be a distraction, or, you know. So we really talk to people ahead of time about, you know, if something's coming up and you think this is getting in the way of what I should be experiencing, it's really good to take the position that, oh, actually, this is what I'm experiencing. Like, if someone's feeling they don't want to go somewhere, you know, something comes up and they're having the experience, I really don't want to go there. And then they start to view that as, okay, this is an obstacle that I should be going there, but I don't want to go there. What we encourage is taking the point of view, oh, what's coming up for me is this feeling of what it's like to think I should go there, not want to go there, and this is your experience, this dilemma itself, and that's, so in a way, you can assume that that's the perfect thing that you needed to have come up. Not that it shouldn't have come up, you should have just gone there, but your inner healing intelligence is bringing up this feeling of struggle and this dilemma for you to work with. So that's pretty much the way we approach everything that comes up. It really messes with people's inner critic because you can't do it wrong, so that that in itself is a huge process. So, you know, we say explicitly, we trust your inner healing intelligence to bring what you need for healing, much more reliable than anything we could figure out with our rational minds. encourage you to approach whatever comes up as something that's coming up for part of the healing process. I kind of feel like I can't repeat that enough to people. And this is a nice quote from Jung's Red Book that I'll just let you read, but I think it kind of talks about the value of not assuming what should happen. Beautiful quote about the inner intelligence, I think, is, of course, if people had been able to figure out what they needed to do to heal, they wouldn't have come. They would have already done it, you know, so you can pretty much assume that trying to determine with the rational mind is not going to be the optimal way to go. So this is going to be another clip of Nick's first MDMA session, 75 milligrams plus 37.5. Oh, yeah. Do we have a microphone?
So I've studied hypnotherapy for a few years now, and a lot of the skill set, per se, you could say, of the client is to be able to trust the things coming up and not call them into question and think that they shouldn't be happening, but to see what's coming up. And it's a skill that usually gets better over time the more people do it. And it sounds like this is being recommended here. For if something comes up, you don't say, oh, I shouldn't go there. You see what it is and then acknowledge it, be present with it. Do you ever train people more or less, like trance training a little bit, to see if they can get comfortable doing that instead of having to do it first time on the spot in session?
I couldn't understand everything.
Do we train people to kind of
trust the inner intelligence?
Yeah, trust it. We don't do any kind of training, but Michael, you usually give the example of the inner healer, inner healer intelligence beforehand. No, I mean, we don't really do too much like explaining or practicing that. We do explain that it's going to be eyes closed and things are just going to come and look at them and sometimes not talk about it and just be with, and the medicine just as them and the medicine and their inner healing intelligence is all they need, and sometimes they need help. It sounds like it would be a good thing to do, though.
Yeah, it could be good. One dilemma we have sometimes is where's the line between preparing people well versus introducing another therapeutic modality to it, and it's kind of a fuzzy line in some way. So we don't do that, but it could be useful, I'm sure.
But what you're saying is true, that the first session tends, for somebody that's never experienced it, tends to be the first time they realize how they're going to process things and how to really do it and access it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, this is a pretty short video, about 10 minutes. Are you ready to take your capsule?
Sure. I just want to tell you, I had this this really intense feeling come over my body, and my heartbeat started beating real fast. But I didn't get at first. I started feeling a little afraid, but then once I started breathing, I've never felt that before. literally felt my heartbeat start to slow down and everything when I started breathing and just relax, and like the sensation it was amazing how not quickly it went away, but just how in control I felt of making it go away. So usually I've had those feelings. In a way, it kind of felt like when a panic attack kind of comes on, and my heartbeat started, and I felt my whole body flush and get really hot, and then I was just amazed how I was able to not really fight it, but kind of relax.
That's good.
I just thought y'all
Yeah.
might want to know that.
Yeah,
So you
thanks.
may have weight.
I just feel like I should tell y'all something that was just really amazing. It's hard to put it in words. I feel things that would come up, and then every time they would just blow away like sand, and I even purposely tried to think of things bothersome, like like money issues or something, and this voice, this part of me, just like so wise and so intelligent, just like brought this peace over me that just said, you've always been taken care of, you always will be taken care of, that's nothing to worry about. And then it just flows away like sand. And then I tried thinking about that aspect of me that's just really rageful, and also besides that image I told y'all about of the fighting with them, I had this image of it like in a jail cell. I have that part of me locked up in jail, and it's just it's dark, but it's got bright red eyes and just really evil. And I thought of that, and I felt like I put that person there, and I went to it and just opened the door and hugged that person, and then the eyes just faded away, and it no longer had kind of an evil look to itself, and I visualized both of us just taking apart the jail cell and just really becoming friends. And then I visualized that image I told you about of me, like it coming out of my hips and it stabbed me in the side and everything, and I just had a strong visualization of me reaching up where the knife was in my side and taking it out, and I took my hands off of its neck and didn't choke it anymore, and just really embraced it, and I don't know, I feel I don't know, part of me realizes that I think that I was taking that person and keeping him locked up because I was so afraid of him, and that by putting him in that cell and keeping him locked up, that I was just making it worse for him. And I was really more beneficial if we kind of worked together, and I'd be, I don't know, I just, it was really amazing. I never realized how much I thought I was being the peaceful person, but I didn't realize how much I was punishing that aspect of me. I think maybe in Iraq I saw what it was capable of, and I think I was too afraid to, and a part of me just feels so bad that I did that to him.
I mean, I know it's me, but I just
Mm-hmm.
describe
Yeah,
it wise.
part of you.
Yeah.
But I just,
Mm.
that's really amazing, and I don't know, I just got this amazing sense of just, I guess, wisdom. I really don't know.
Sounds a lot like wisdom to me.
It was really amazing, and even when I try and think of that really rageful aspect of me, like I can't even, I know it's there, but it just doesn't, I really feel like so much more at peace with like everything.
Great.
Like even if I try and think about Iraq and everything, like I somehow feel like really peaceful about the fact that that's my journey, and that
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
part of me I mean, I know this is part of the part of the drug, but when I try and think, am I going to be able to hold on to this this understanding and this somewhat of wisdom, this knowledge that I have now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just asking myself that question, I feel like it's so profound that I don't think I could really forget it. I really felt like I met that aspect of me. It's just very, very calming, very sage-like, but just was like very comforting, and like I don't know, it's amazing how I felt like so much lighter. Like I keep thinking of that aspect of me that I kept in a cage, and
Sounds like that part of you needs some lightness.
I know it feels like I don't feel like best friends now. Like you want to chat and get caught up, and
Beautiful.
I really feel like you said, that part of me is a protector, and it's not dangerous. And just thinking about it now, whenever I blow up on people or blow up on my wife and get all angry and yelling at her, I feel like it's because I kept that person locked up, and of course it's going to be hateful and resentful for being locked up, and so when it comes to the surface like that, it's going to be mean and make people cry. I really feel like letting it breathe and letting it be is just going to be so much better for me.
I think so.
And there's this part of me that keeps talking and saying that I should feel bad for keeping that aspect of me, like part of me that's saying like it's all your fault that you created all those feelings, the anger and all that other stuff. But then I don't know what part of me is saying that, because every time it says that, that sage part of me just says it's part of being human, It's, I don't know why I couldn't have come up with this on my own, but I'm glad I found it.
I'm glad too. We're kind of thinking MDMA might be a good medicine for PTSD.
That was Nick's first session, right?
Huh?
That was his
That was
first
his first
session. So that was his
session, so-
first session. And that rageful part never came back again in that same way with his wife. And she was just amazed by it too.
Yeah, his wife verified. Just you know, it wasn't the end of the story at all. Nick had actually 5 more sessions because he was one of the lucky ones that got 375 milligram and then 125. So, and we'll show you a little more. He went on to process the trauma and much more difficult stuff, but when it's, I think, an example of the beauty of not having an agenda. You know, this is really the first thing that happened. Well, the first thing that happened, you heard, he realized he was able to breathe and the anxiety would settle down.
Yeah, he could get through the panic attack on his own.
Yeah.
And then he could have that as a template for later if he had a panic attack.
Yeah. And then this healing of that relationship with his warrior part. And then after that, he was able to, you know, it wasn't all easy from here on. That wasn't the end of the story, but it was, that is when his rage attacks ended. And it's been like, what, 5 years now? We're still in touch with him. As far as I'm pretty sure they've not come back. So it was very dramatic. So that's a really nice example. You know, it obviously isn't always that easy. Some sessions, there's a lot more difficulty and more need for engagement with us. We don't really have time to show you some of the most challenging parts, but just to acknowledge that we've had those experiences too. And also, like, there's a huge spectrum, because another example that we show in the training is one of the other Marine veterans where basically we didn't know what was going on or talk to him for the whole session, except every hour we would check in and, you know, we'd say, how's it going? He'd say, beautiful, or, and we, you know, so.
I'd say, how is the music? It's terrific. It matches my experience perfectly.
And then, you know, one time he said, so each time we'd check in, we'd ask him if there's anything more he wanted to talk about, but if not, there never was, so we didn't push it at all. We said, great. But he told us that, you know, that he was, at one point he said there's a lot to process. So, you know, we knew he was having a powerful process. We didn't have to know what it was, and we didn't find out till later. Or he said, one time he said, thank you for being here with me. So that was another piece of important information. We knew he felt connected to us, and he was having an intense process, and he was handling it well. And one of the most beautiful things he said when Annie checked in once, he said, she said, is there anything more you want to talk about? And he paused a minute and he said, no, every time I think I might want to talk about something, I check with my body, and my body says, no, not yet, let's go deeper. So, you know, we weren't about to mess with that or interrupt that. And then that night he wrote about it, and the next day he read it to us, this incredible account of he was having very specific re-experiencing of very traumatic stuff in Iraq, and having this incredible healing experience with the spirit of his friend who died right in front of him. And, you know, so there was a lot of specific trauma processing going on.
And forgiveness.
And forgiveness,
He was a medic, and so there was a lot of forgiveness about not being able to do something for that person, and that person wanting him to go on with his life. So we found that out the next morning after after every session. His sessions were all like that. And then he would write these just incredible 3 pages of what the process had been like.
Yeah, so that's one end. Nick is kind of in the middle, where there's a fair amount of interaction, but a lot of happens on its own, and then there are other people who need a lot more interaction. Yeah.
Microphone. Yeah, thanks.
So just thinking of the other end of the spectrum, I know from just talking with friends or people that have problems that they'll often be very avoidant and distract themselves and distract the therapist or a friend with conversation that's very unrelated to what's going on. And sometimes it's quite obvious that they're purposefully doing it to be avoidant about talking about an issue, but you can tell underneath that they're being affected by the issues. So I'm wondering, in a non-directive sort of manner, how would you deal with that sort of situation? Like, for an example, particularly one that would always come up is asking the therapist a lot of questions about their life and how they're doing and things that are going on like that.
You're talking about during MDMA sessions? Or?
Yeah, during a therapy session, MDMA, or maybe even the first session, and like when they're being that sort of distraction, like distracting from the topic.
Yeah, good question. I mean, we're happy to answer things about ourselves. It hasn't come up much during the MDMA sessions, but in the preparatory sessions, we ask people if there's anything they'd like to know about us or how we work or our own experiences, and we're quite open with that. We tend to take a kind of non-psychoanalytic point of view to, we don't answer every question with, why do you ask that question? Usually we just answer. But if it's a repetitive pattern, if it looks like somebody's moving away from something, then we would ask them about it.
Or say we notice that every time we suggest you go inside, you want to talk about something else. But, wait enough time so that you're giving them a chance to see it themselves, and then gently asking them if they notice that.
We usually give a lot of space to see if they're going to notice it first. Like we've had people who seem to be getting up to go to the bathroom more often than they probably need to, and we've noticed that they're sort of approaching something and then they suddenly have to go to the bathroom, and so we kind of make note, don't say anything. Eventually we would say something, but more often than not, after a few times, they'll come back to the bathroom and they'll lie down and they'll say, I just realized that every time I had to went to the bathroom was really because I started thinking about X, Y, or Z. And so it's even, of course, more powerful if they come up with it themselves. But, and in general, we often, if people have been talking, whether we think it's kind of distraction or not, after a period of time, we often say, we've been talking quite a lot. This might be a really good time to go back inside for a while and just see what your inner healer is going to bring. Even if, sometimes we'll say, this is really valuable, all we've been talking about, and I think it would be really helpful to go back inside. Sometimes they won't, and we don't get in an argument about it, but usually that's a good way to just invite going back in if there's a lot of talking. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. Here and then there.
I presume that some of these people are traumatized because they've killed people, and I couldn't really tell in this video if he was just talking about some inner anger at himself, or if the anger was because of things he had done. And what's your experience, or how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm reluctant to say a lot more about his specific process, but yes, we've certainly worked with veterans who part of the trauma has been about the people they've killed, and we work with it just like anything else, encourage them to stay with it and process it with us.
That definitely is something that's part of war. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. First,
Yeah.
am I next?
Oh.
Or was there somebody over here?
Okay. You're next since your mic is on, and then he's next over there.
Apologies. Well, first, just thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of this with us. It's such a beautiful video to watch, and I'm wondering if, when we talk about ayahuasca or psilocybin mushrooms, we conceptualize it often that there's a spirit to that medicine that's also coming in to help catalyze the process. And I'm wondering if, in your experience, you've gotten a sense of if MDMA has a spirit or an energy, and who or what you conceptualize that to be?
Yes, and I don't know.
I know it's helped me a lot. I mean, I haven't taken it during the sessions, but being there, like watching the blood pressure go up and up and up and up, I get really activated by that. Michael, because he worked in the ER for 10 years, doesn't get activated by that, but I'll just, okay, trust the process, trust the medicine. A number of times I've gone in the bathroom and just trust the process, trust the medicine. So I feel like there is something to it, that trusting comes from the medicine for me. How about you, honey?
Yeah, well, we don't lay any of this on the participants about the spirit of the medicine, but I personally kind of feel as if the medicine has been paid, we've been engaged in this regulatory process of twists and turns and hurdles for many years now, and I kind of feel as if the medicine has been paving the way and we've been following. So.
It's also been interesting to see how people have been brought to us by little pieces of paper they've clipped out of newspapers in some city that they used to live in, and then suddenly they're in Charleston and they remember, oh yeah, I've got a clipping of paper in my wallet. And it feels like there's something that has brought certain people to the studies.
And just thinking about it reminds me of what you're saying, thinking of ayahuasca and psilocybin mushrooms and peyote being natural, coming from plants. When we were at Albert Hofmann's 100th birthday, which was a Psychedelic Science meeting kind of in Basel, and somebody said, well, isn't it better to, isn't it different if they're plants compared to something that was made in the laboratory? And Albert Hofmann said, anyone that thinks there's some essential difference between something from a plant and something that's made in the laboratory doesn't understand the relationship between consciousness and matter. So I thought that was pretty cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. I just was wondering if you could both give me your gut clinical gestalt. This is such a profound thing to watch. Let's say hypothetically the FDA shut you down right after that, and he never had any further MDMA or therapy. He walked out of the room. How far would he have gotten in your gut clinical gestalt to further his healing?
I couldn't understand it all.
Well, what if the FDA had shut us down right after this session? How far would he have gotten in his healing? So, I mean, he got a long way just with that one session.
Yeah.
But he didn't really re-experience the trauma in that session the way that he probably needed to. I mean, at least that's what he did. And, by the time he got through his 375 milligram sessions, he wasn't sure that if he found out that it was 75 milligrams, that he would go on and do the second part of the study, because he already felt like he was pretty much cured of PTSD. But then it turned out that he did get 75 milligrams and he had the opportunity to come back. So he did do a lot of work with the 125, but he was so much better at that point. Yeah.
I mean, if you remember that graph from the first study, the biggest change happened when we measured it 4 days after the first MDMA session.
Right.
What we do wish is that the FDA would just send somebody to watch one of these sessions and then be done with the whole thing, because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But they haven't agreed to that yet. Or even better.
So I think we're supposed to have a break now.
Oh yeah, okay.
And the CME's paperwork. Yeah.
I just
Oh, you
one
have
more
the
question.
microphone? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm curious about, you mentioned he wrote a 3-page paper. How often does creativity come up? Like, do you get several people that might come back with a song or poetry or artwork?
We're going to show you some artwork and poetry. And actually, we did have a veteran that was writing music also.
Yeah,
Comes up a lot.
A lot,
Yeah.
and so those are the kinds of things you want to find out beforehand if they have those talents that they can use for integration. It's so important. Someone in the first study who used to sing before her trauma and then never could go back to singing, and then once she went through the study, then she started singing again. So it's really, really beautiful.
I guess also with that, within the sessions, do you ever have people come up with song? Because that's my personal experience. A song, like, it might not be a song, but a melody. And I'm just curious, with your experience, does that happen?
Well, we encourage them to write things down and do that. I don't think we've ever had anybody come up with a song in the session, but
No, I haven't.
good.
But, yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, 15-minute break.